Question 1. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of discrepancies in submitted academic transcripts for international applicants, with a high potential impact on the integrity of the admissions process. An applicant's submitted transcript from a foreign institution appears to have an unusual grading scale that is not immediately comparable to Akita International University standard. What is the most appropriate course of action according to the Akita International University entrance exam's regulatory framework for admissions? Option A. Contact the applicant to request a detailed explanation of their institution's grading scale and potentially a certified translation or equivalency document. Option B. Proceed with the application, assuming the applicant's grades are satisfactory, and address any potential issues later if they arise. Option C. Forward the application to a third-party credential evaluation service without informing the applicant. Option D. Immediately reject the application due to the inability to verify the transcript's authenticity and comparability. Correct answer is A. Contact the applicant to request a detailed explanation of their institution's grading scale and potentially a certified translation or equivalency document. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing admissions processes under time pressure. The Akita International University entrance exam regulations, specifically those pertaining to admissions and academic honesty, demand a thorough and fair evaluation of all applicants. Misinterpreting or overlooking potential discrepancies in application materials can lead to either admitting unqualified candidates or unfairly rejecting deserving ones, both of which undermine the university's reputation and the integrity of its admissions process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the applicant's academic records and a proactive, transparent communication with the applicant to clarify any ambiguities. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and fairness mandated by the university's admissions guidelines, which emphasize verifying the authenticity and completeness of all submitted documents. By seeking clarification, the admissions committee upholds the integrity of the evaluation process and ensures that decisions are based on accurate information, thereby adhering to the spirit of fair competition and academic merit. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based on a perceived discrepancy without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of clerical errors or misunderstandings, which could lead to an unjust outcome. Such an action would violate the principle of providing applicants with a fair opportunity to present their case, and could be seen as a procedural failure under the university's admissions policies. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the discrepancy and proceed with the application as is. This compromises the integrity of the admissions process by potentially accepting an applicant based on incomplete or inaccurate information. It also sets a precedent that could encourage future applicants to submit incomplete or misleading documentation, thereby eroding the standards of academic honesty that the university aims to uphold. Professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify the discrepancy. Second, consult the relevant university regulations and guidelines for handling such issues. Third, attempt to resolve the discrepancy through direct, transparent communication with the applicant. And fourth, make a decision based on verified information and in accordance with established procedures. This methodical process ensures fairness, accuracy, and adherence to regulatory requirements. Question 2. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the time taken for the initial applicant review stage of the Akita International University entrance exam. To address this, which of the following process optimization strategies would be most appropriate and compliant with the university's entrance exam regulations? Option A. Prioritize applications from candidates who have demonstrated exceptional extracurricular achievements, even if their initial academic qualifications are not as strong, to streamline the selection of potentially high-impact students. Option B. Introduce an automated system that flags applications based on a limited set of easily quantifiable criteria, significantly reducing the need for manual review in the initial stages. Option C. Implement a multi-stage review process where initial screening is conducted by a dedicated team, followed by a more in-depth assessment by subject matter experts for shortlisted candidates, ensuring all assessment criteria are clearly defined and consistently applied. Option D. Reduce the number of assessment criteria evaluated during the initial review to expedite the process, focusing only on the most basic eligibility requirements. The correct answer is C. Implement a multi-stage review process where initial screening is conducted by a dedicated team, followed by a more in-depth assessment by subject matter experts for shortlisted candidates, ensuring all assessment criteria are clearly defined and consistently applied. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of the admissions process, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Akita International University entrance exam. The pressure to improve metrics can lead to shortcuts that compromise fairness and adherence to established procedures. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization genuinely enhances efficiency without violating the spirit or letter of the exam regulations. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks, and proposing changes that are demonstrably beneficial and compliant with Akita International University's entrance exam guidelines. This approach prioritizes thoroughness and adherence to regulations. Specifically, it involves consulting the official Akita International University entrance exam regulations to ensure any proposed changes do not contravene established rules regarding applicant assessment, data handling, or fairness. The ethical justification lies in upholding the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and maintaining the credibility of the university's admissions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the impact on fairness would be ethically and regulatorily unsound. For instance, automating the initial screening of applications based on superficial criteria without a human review could lead to the exclusion of qualified candidates who might not fit a rigid algorithmic profile, violating the principle of a fair and comprehensive assessment as implicitly or explicitly required by university entrance exam regulations. Another incorrect approach, such as reducing the number of assessment stages to save time and resources, could compromise the thoroughness of the evaluation, potentially admitting less suitable candidates or rejecting deserving ones, which would be a failure to meet the standards expected of a university entrance examination. A third incorrect approach, like prioritizing candidates based on perceived future success rather than their performance in the exam itself, would be a direct violation of merit-based admissions principles and the specific criteria set forth by the Akita International University entrance exam. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. This involves identifying the core objectives of the process optimization, e.g., efficiency, fairness, accuracy, evaluating potential solutions against these objectives and the regulatory framework, and selecting the option that best achieves the desired outcomes while upholding all compliance requirements. A critical step is to seek clarification from the relevant university authorities or review official documentation if any proposed optimization raises questions about regulatory compliance. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal a pattern of minor data entry errors in a subset of international student applications submitted for the upcoming academic year at Akita International University. These errors, such as transposed digits in student ID numbers or slight inaccuracies in listed previous academic institutions, are not significant enough to immediately disqualify an applicant, but do create inconsistencies with supporting documentation. The admissions committee needs to decide on the most appropriate process optimization strategy to address these findings. Option A. Immediately flag all applications with any identified data entry errors for automatic rejection to maintain the highest standard of data accuracy from the outset. Option B. Implement a standardized, multi-stage verification process for all applications exhibiting such discrepancies, involving cross-referencing with original documents and a secondary review by a different admissions officer, with a clear protocol for documenting any corrections or requiring clarification from the applicant. Option C. Instruct the admissions team to overlook minor data entry errors to expedite the processing of applications, assuming they do not fundamentally alter the applicant's qualifications. Option D. Develop a subjective scoring system for data entry errors, where each error contributes a certain number of negative points to the overall application assessment, with the final score determining acceptance. The correct answer is B. Implement a standardized, multi-stage verification process for all applications exhibiting such discrepancies, involving cross-referencing with original documents and a secondary review by a different admissions officer, with a clear protocol for documenting any corrections or requiring clarification from the applicant. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student applications and the potential for human error in a high-volume process. Akita International University, like any educational institution, operates under a framework of regulations and ethical guidelines designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and the validity of its admissions process. The specific jurisdiction for this exam is Akita International University's internal regulatory framework and Japanese educational guidelines. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review process that prioritizes accuracy and fairness. This means not only identifying discrepancies, but also establishing a clear protocol for investigation and resolution that aligns with university policy and relevant Japanese educational standards for admissions. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and maintains the credibility of the university's admissions decisions. It ensures that any errors are addressed transparently and consistently, preventing potential bias or arbitrary outcomes. An incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting applications based solely on minor discrepancies without further investigation fails to adhere to principles of due process and fairness. This could violate internal university policies regarding application review and potentially broader Japanese educational guidelines that emphasize thoroughness in admissions. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the discrepancies to expedite the process, compromises the integrity of the admissions system. This risks admitting unqualified students or unfairly disadvantaging qualified applicants whose applications might have been affected by similar, unaddressed errors. It also undermines the purpose of quality control measures, which are in place to prevent such issues. A third incorrect approach, which is to arbitrarily assign a penalty without a clear, documented rationale, is ethically unsound and procedurally flawed. It lacks transparency and could lead to discriminatory practices, violating the fundamental principles of fair evaluation expected in academic admissions. Professionals in university admission should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific university policies and any applicable national educational regulations. This involves meticulously documenting any identified issues, initiating a fair and impartial investigation process, and applying a consistent resolution protocol. Transparency and clear communication with applicants, where appropriate and permitted by policy, are also crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all decisions are based on accurate information and are made in accordance with established standards of academic and administrative practice. Question 4. The control framework reveals that the Akita International University entrance exam admissions process is experiencing delays in applicant review. To address this, a proposal suggests implementing a new system that significantly reduces the time spent on initial document verification and essay screening by relying heavily on automated checks and predefined scoring algorithms, with minimal human intervention in the early stages. This approach aims to expedite the overall timeline for candidate selection. Option A. Introduce a new automated system that drastically cuts down verification and screening times by using advanced algorithms to flag applications for review, with a significantly reduced human oversight component in the initial stages to accelerate the process. Option B. Implement a phased approach to process optimization, starting with a thorough review of the current workflow to identify specific areas for improvement, followed by the introduction of technology-assisted tools that augment, rather than replace, human judgment in critical evaluation stages, ensuring all changes are tested for compliance with Akita International University entrance exam regulations. Option C. Focus on increasing the number of temporary staff dedicated to document checking and essay reading, without fundamentally altering the existing review procedures, to absorb the workload and reduce individual processing times. Option D. Prioritize the reduction of processing time by implementing a policy that accepts applicant-submitted documents at face value without extensive cross-verification and uses a simplified essay scoring rubric that heavily relies on keyword matching. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased approach to process optimization, starting with a thorough review of the current workflow to identify specific areas for improvement, followed by the introduction of technology-assisted tools that augment, rather than replace, human judgment in critical evaluation stages, ensuring all changes are tested for compliance with Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing operational efficiency and upholding the integrity of the university's admissions process, as mandated by Akita International University's specific entrance exam regulations. The pressure to streamline processes must be balanced against the requirement for thorough and fair evaluation of all applicants, ensuring no procedural shortcuts compromise the validity of the entrance examination. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing admissions workflow to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the implementation of targeted improvements that do not compromise the core principles of fairness, transparency, and adherence to the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it prioritizes the integrity of the examination process. It ensures that any optimization efforts are designed to enhance, not undermine, the rigorous standards set forth by the university for candidate selection. This aligns with the overarching goal of admitting qualified students through a fair and equitable process, as implicitly and explicitly required by the exam's governing framework. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time taken for document verification, without implementing additional quality checks, risks overlooking critical discrepancies or fraudulent submissions. This failure to maintain adequate scrutiny directly contravenes the spirit and letter of the entrance exam regulations, which presume a diligent and thorough review of all application materials. Another incorrect approach, which involves automating the initial screening of essays without human oversight, could lead to the misinterpretation of nuanced arguments or the exclusion of potentially strong candidates whose writing styles do not perfectly align with algorithmic expectations. This bypasses the qualitative assessment that is a crucial component of evaluating a candidate's suitability for university study, as implied by the comprehensive nature of university entrance exams. A third incorrect approach, which prioritizes speed over accuracy in data entry for applicant information, could result in significant errors that misrepresent candidates' qualifications or contact details, thereby jeopardizing the fairness of the entire admissions process and potentially violating the university's commitment to accurate record-keeping. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. This involves identifying the core objectives of the process, e.g., fair evaluation, efficient processing, assessing potential risks to these objectives, and then developing solutions that mitigate risks while achieving objectives. Continuous monitoring and evaluation of implemented changes are also crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 5. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive understanding of the Akita International University's specific entrance examination regulations and ethical guidelines to ensure a fair and transparent admissions process. Considering this, which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's regulatory framework for candidate assessment? Option A. Utilizing informal feedback from current faculty members to influence the ranking of prospective students, bypassing the formal assessment procedures. Option B. Expediting the review of applications by accepting preliminary documentation without the required official verification to meet internal processing deadlines. Option C. Prioritizing candidates who demonstrate exceptional extracurricular achievements, even if their academic scores fall slightly below the minimum threshold specified in the university's published guidelines. Option D. Implementing a standardized evaluation rubric that strictly adheres to the criteria outlined in the Akita International University's official admissions policy, ensuring all candidates are assessed against the same objective standards. The correct answer is D. Implementing a standardized evaluation rubric that strictly adheres to the criteria outlined in the Akita International University's official admissions policy, ensuring all candidates are assessed against the same objective standards. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because the Akita International University entrance exam requires adherence to specific, localized regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines. Misinterpreting or ignoring these can lead to severe consequences, including invalidating the exam process or failing to uphold the university's academic integrity standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure all actions align with the established rules, which are paramount in an academic admissions context. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the Akita International University's specific admission regulations and ethical conduct guidelines. This means prioritizing the integrity of the examination process by ensuring all candidates are assessed fairly and transparently, in strict accordance with the university's published criteria. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the principles of fairness, equity, and due process that are fundamental to academic admissions. It directly addresses the university's mandate to select qualified students based on merit and adherence to its established standards, as outlined in its official examination policies. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on expediting the admissions process without regard for the established procedural safeguards would be professionally unacceptable. This would violate the university's regulations by potentially overlooking critical verification steps or introducing bias, thereby compromising the fairness of the selection. Another incorrect approach, which involves seeking external, non-sanctioned advice or shortcuts that circumvent the official examination protocols, would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Such actions undermine the authority of the university's governing bodies and could lead to accusations of impropriety or favoritism, damaging the reputation of both the university and the individuals involved. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive review of the Akita International University's official entrance examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This should be followed by an assessment of the current situation against these established rules. Any proposed actions must be evaluated for their compliance with these specific regulations and ethical standards. If ambiguity exists, seeking clarification from the designated university authorities responsible for admissions and examinations is the appropriate next step, rather than proceeding with assumptions or unverified methods. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that the Akita International University admissions team is considering a significant overhaul of its application review system to expedite processing times. One proposal suggests implementing an automated system that assigns a preliminary score based solely on GPA and standardized test results, with only applications exceeding a certain threshold proceeding to a human reviewer. Another suggestion is to reduce the average review time per application by 30% through increased staffing and streamlined checklists. A third option proposes a two-stage review where initial screening is entirely automated, and only a small percentage of top-scoring applications are then reviewed by a committee. Which of these proposed process optimizations best aligns with the principles of a fair and comprehensive university entrance examination process, as implicitly guided by the Akita International University Entrance Exam Framework? Option A. Implementing an automated system that assigns a preliminary score based solely on GPA and standardized test results, with only applications exceeding a certain threshold proceeding to a human reviewer. Option B. A multi-stage review process that incorporates both automated preliminary checks for basic eligibility and thorough human evaluation of qualitative aspects like essays and recommendations, with sufficient time allocated for each stage. Option C. Reducing the average review time per application by 30% through increased staffing and streamlined checklists. Option D. A two-stage review where initial screening is entirely automated and only a small percentage of top-scoring applications are then reviewed by a committee. The correct answer is A. Implementing an automated system that assigns a preliminary score based solely on GPA and standardized test results, with only applications exceeding a certain threshold proceeding to a human reviewer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's admissions process, while aiming for efficiency, must also uphold fairness and transparency, adhering to the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. The pressure to optimize processing times can inadvertently lead to overlooking critical qualitative aspects of applications, potentially disadvantaging deserving candidates. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with the integrity of the selection process. The correct approach involves a multi-stage review that prioritizes thoroughness over sheer speed. This method ensures that each application is assessed not only for quantifiable metrics, but also for qualitative elements such as essays, recommendations, and extracurricular achievements, which are crucial for identifying well-rounded candidates suited for Akita International University. This aligns with the spirit of the Akita International University entrance exam regulations, which implicitly demand a holistic evaluation to select individuals who will contribute positively to the university community. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed by implementing automated pre-screening based on a narrow set of quantifiable criteria fails to comply with the comprehensive evaluation principles expected in university admissions. This method risks rejecting candidates who might excel in qualitative aspects, thereby violating the implicit requirement for a fair and thorough assessment. Another incorrect approach, which involves delegating the final decision-making to an algorithm without human oversight, bypasses the nuanced judgment necessary for admissions. This is ethically problematic as it removes human accountability and the ability to consider exceptional circumstances or unique strengths not captured by data. A third incorrect approach, which prioritizes speed by reducing the time allocated for reviewing each application, compromises the depth of analysis. This can lead to superficial assessments and missed opportunities to identify promising candidates, undermining the university's commitment to selecting the best fit for its programs. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. This involves defining the key criteria for evaluation, both quantitative and qualitative, and establishing a review process that allows sufficient time for each component. Regular training on best practices in admissions and process optimization, coupled with periodic audits of the admissions outcomes, helps ensure that efficiency gains do not compromise fairness or the quality of the student body. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that the Akita International University admissions process is experiencing significant delays, leading to a backlog of applications and potential dissatisfaction among prospective students. The review highlights that, while the existing criteria for evaluating applicants are robust, the operational workflow is proving to be a bottleneck. Considering the university's commitment to academic excellence and fair evaluation, which of the following strategies best addresses these identified inefficiencies while upholding the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Immediately increase the number of admissions staff to process applications faster without a detailed examination of the existing workflow. Option B. Prioritize the processing of applications from candidates who have demonstrated exceptional academic achievements, potentially bypassing some standard review steps. Option C. Reduce the number of review stages for all applications to expedite the decision-making process. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of each stage of the admissions workflow to identify specific points of delay and implement targeted improvements to streamline operations without compromising the thoroughness of applicant evaluation. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of each stage of the admissions workflow to identify specific points of delay and implement targeted improvements to streamline operations without compromising the thoroughness of applicant evaluation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's commitment to academic integrity and the need for efficient administrative processes. The challenge lies in balancing the thoroughness required for a fair and transparent admissions process with the operational pressures of managing a large volume of applications within a defined timeframe. Akita International University, like any academic institution, must adhere to its own established admission regulations and the broader principles of fairness and equity in its decision-making. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the admissions process to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies without compromising the integrity of the evaluation. This means analyzing each stage of the application lifecycle, from initial submission to final decision, to pinpoint areas where delays or errors are occurring. The justification for this approach is rooted in the university's commitment to fair and equitable admissions, as outlined in its official admissions guidelines and the general principles of good governance expected of educational institutions. By focusing on process optimization, the university aims to improve efficiency while upholding its standards for candidate assessment, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated fairly and consistently according to established criteria. This aligns with the ethical obligation to provide a transparent and just admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes that prioritize speed over thoroughness. For instance, reducing the number of review stages or relying solely on automated screening without human oversight could lead to overlooking qualified candidates or admitting unsuitable ones, thereby violating the principles of fair evaluation and potentially contravening the university's own admission policies. Another incorrect approach would be to simply increase staffing without analyzing the underlying process, which might be a costly and ineffective solution if the core process itself is flawed. This fails to address the root cause of any inefficiencies and does not guarantee improved outcomes. A third incorrect approach would be to bypass established review protocols to expedite decisions for a select group of applicants. This would be a clear breach of fairness and equity, undermining the credibility of the admissions process and potentially violating university regulations regarding equal treatment of all applicants. Professionals facing such a situation should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves clearly defining the problem, inefficiencies in the admissions process, gathering data on current performance, identifying potential solutions, evaluating these solutions against established criteria, efficiency, fairness, adherence to regulations, and implementing the chosen solution with a plan for monitoring and evaluation. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are evidence-based, ethically sound, and aligned with the institution's objectives and regulatory framework. Question 8. Benchmark analysis indicates that the Akita International University Entrance Examination admissions process has several stages that contribute to a lengthy review period. Considering the university's commitment to admitting academically strong international students and adhering to Japanese Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, MEXT guidelines for fair admissions, which of the following process optimization strategies would be most appropriate? Option A. Focusing on streamlining the interview scheduling and communication protocols, alongside standardizing the criteria for evaluating interview performance to ensure consistent and efficient assessment of candidate suitability. Option B. Prioritizing the reduction of the number of required application documents to speed up the initial screening phase, even if it means potentially omitting crucial information for a complete candidate evaluation. Option C. Implementing a system that significantly reduces the time allocated for reviewing each applicant's academic transcripts and personal statements to expedite the overall admissions timeline. Option D. Introducing a new, comprehensive digital application management system that automates all aspects of the review process, from initial submission to final decision, without prior staff training or pilot testing. The correct answer is C. Implementing a system that significantly reduces the time allocated for reviewing each applicant's academic transcripts and personal statements to expedite the overall admissions timeline. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to understand how to apply process optimization principles within the specific context of university entrance examination. As governed by Akita International University's internal regulations and the Japanese Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, MEXT guidelines for higher education admissions. The pressure to admit qualified candidates efficiently while maintaining fairness and integrity necessitates a nuanced approach to process improvement. Misinterpreting or misapplying optimization strategies could lead to unfair admissions, reduced applicant pool quality, or procedural inefficiencies that violate established university policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves identifying bottlenecks in the current application review process and implementing targeted improvements that enhance efficiency without compromising the thoroughness of candidate assessment. This aligns with the university's objective of admitting academically capable students and adhering to MEXT emphasis on merit-based admissions. Specifically, this approach would involve analyzing the stages of application review, from initial document screening to interview scheduling and final decision-making, to pinpoint areas where delays or excessive resource allocation occur. Improvements might include digitizing certain review steps, standardizing evaluation criteria for reviewers, or optimizing the communication flow between admissions committees. This is ethically sound as it promotes fairness by ensuring all applications receive adequate attention and procedurally compliant as it seeks to improve operations within the university's established framework. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on reducing the time spent on each application without considering the depth of review would be ethically flawed. This could lead to superficial assessments, potentially overlooking qualified candidates or admitting underqualified ones, thereby violating the principle of fair and merit-based evaluation mandated by MEXT and university policy. It also risks procedural noncompliance if it bypasses required review stages. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a new, complex digital system without adequate pilot testing or training for admissions staff. This could introduce new inefficiencies, errors, and delays, potentially compromising the integrity of the admissions process and violating university guidelines on system implementation and data security. It fails to optimize the existing process effectively and could lead to operational disruption. A third incorrect approach might involve prioritizing speed of admission over the comprehensive evaluation of an applicant's academic record and potential. This would disregard the core purpose of the entrance examination, which is to select the most suitable candidates based on a holistic review, and would likely contravene MEXT directives on rigorous academic assessment. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should first thoroughly understand the existing admissions process, identifying all steps, stakeholders, and regulatory requirements, including university policies and MEXT guidelines. They should then employ a data-driven approach to pinpoint inefficiencies, focusing on areas that impact both speed and quality of assessment. Solutions should be evaluated for their potential impact on fairness, integrity, and compliance. Pilot testing and iterative refinement are crucial before full implementation. Continuous monitoring and evaluation are necessary to ensure sustained optimization and adherence to ethical and regulatory standards. Question 9. Process analysis reveals that the Akita International University admissions team is considering implementing a new workflow for processing entrance examination applications to improve efficiency. One proposed method involves quickly scanning applications and flagging those that appear to meet basic criteria for immediate approval, deferring detailed verification to a later stage. Another suggestion is to prioritize applications from candidates who have achieved high scores in previous academic years, assuming they will meet the current entrance exam requirements. A third idea is to streamline the document review by only checking for the presence of key documents, rather than verifying their content against the specific requirements of the Akita International University entrance exam. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for the Akita International University entrance exam? Option A. Streamlined document review focusing only on the presence of key documents, without verifying their content against specific entrance exam requirements. Option B. A systematic review of each application against all stipulated criteria within the Akita International University entrance exam regulations, ensuring completeness and accuracy of all submitted documents before any decision is made. Option C. Expedited approval of applications based on a superficial scan and initial impression of meeting basic criteria, with detailed verification postponed. Option D. Prioritization of applications from candidates with a history of high academic scores, assuming they will meet the current entrance exam requirements. Correct answer is B. A systematic review of each application against all stipulated criteria within the Akita International University entrance exam regulations, ensuring completeness and accuracy of all submitted documents before any decision is made. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's admissions process, while aiming for efficiency, must also uphold fairness and transparency, adhering strictly to the Akita International University entrance exam regulations. The pressure to optimize processing times can inadvertently lead to overlooking critical procedural steps or misinterpreting guidelines, potentially impacting the integrity of the admissions outcome. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with the absolute necessity of compliance. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the admissions application data against the established criteria outlined in the Akita International University entrance exam regulations. This approach prioritizes accuracy and adherence to the defined standards, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated consistently and fairly. Specifically, it requires cross-referencing applicant information with the documented requirements for each program, verifying the completeness of submitted documents, and confirming that all eligibility criteria, as stipulated by the university's entrance exam framework, are met. This method aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the admissions process and the regulatory requirement to follow the specified examination guidelines without deviation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed by pre-approving applications based on superficial checks, without thorough verification against the detailed entrance exam regulations, fails to meet the fundamental requirements of the Akita International University Entrance Exam. This bypasses the essential due diligence mandated by the university's framework, potentially leading to the admission of unqualified candidates or the rejection of deserving ones due to incomplete or inaccurate processing. Such an approach violates the principle of fairness and the regulatory obligation to apply the entrance exam criteria rigorously. Another incorrect approach that involves prioritizing applications based on perceived likelihood of acceptance, rather than a systematic review against the entrance exam criteria, introduces bias and undermines the transparency of the admissions process. This deviates from the stipulated regulatory framework, which demands an objective evaluation of all applicants based on the defined entrance examination standards. This method is ethically unsound, as it creates an uneven playing field and fails to adhere to the university's established procedures. A third incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about applicant qualifications to expedite processing without consulting the specific guidelines within the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations is also professionally unacceptable. This practice introduces a high risk of error and misinterpretation of the university's admission standards. It directly contravenes the regulatory requirement for meticulous adherence to the documented entrance exam framework, potentially leading to significant procedural flaws and reputational damage for the university. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to understanding and strictly applying the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. This means prioritizing accuracy and compliance over speed. When faced with a need for process optimization, professionals should first identify areas where efficiency can be improved without compromising the integrity of the regulatory framework. This might involve streamlining data entry, improving communication channels, or implementing better document management systems, all while ensuring that the core evaluation process remains robust and compliant with the university's entrance exam guidelines. If there is any ambiguity in the regulations, seeking clarification from the relevant university authorities or the examination board is paramount before proceeding. Question 10. Process analysis reveals that the Akita International University Entrance Exam Admissions Department is experiencing significant delays in processing applications due to manual review of all submitted documents and essays. To address this, the department is considering several strategies to streamline operations. Which of the following strategies best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for the Akita International University Entrance Exam, prioritizing both efficiency and the integrity of the admissions process? Option A. Implementing a tiered review system where a subset of applications is randomly selected for expedited processing by a single reviewer, while the rest follow the standard procedure. Option B. Reducing the minimum number of required supporting documents for all applicants to decrease the volume of materials that need to be processed. Option C. Developing a digital platform that allows for secure online submission of all required documents and essays, with automated initial checks for completeness and format compliance, followed by a multi-stage human review process for substantive evaluation. Option D. Utilizing artificial intelligence to automatically score essay responses based on predefined criteria, with human review only for applications flagged as borderline by the AI. The correct answer is A. Implementing a tiered review system where a subset of applications is randomly selected for expedited processing by a single reviewer, while the rest follow the standard procedure. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's admissions process, while aiming for efficiency, must also uphold fairness and transparency, adhering strictly to the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. The pressure to optimize processing times can inadvertently lead to shortcuts that compromise these fundamental principles. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with the integrity of the admission system. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the admissions workflow, identifying bottlenecks and proposing solutions that enhance speed without sacrificing accuracy or fairness. This includes leveraging technology for data management and communication, but always within the bounds of the exam's established procedures for applicant verification and evaluation. The regulatory framework for the Akita International University entrance exam emphasizes a thorough and equitable assessment of all candidates. Therefore, any process optimization must ensure that it does not introduce bias, overlook critical documentation, or deviate from the prescribed evaluation criteria. Ethical considerations also demand that the process is perceived as just by all applicants, fostering trust in the university's admission standards. An incorrect approach would be to implement automated screening that relies solely on keyword matching for essays, as this could unfairly penalize applicants with nuanced arguments or unique writing styles that do not perfectly align with predefined keywords. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement for a comprehensive evaluation of applicant potential. Another incorrect approach would be to reduce the number of reviewers for application essays to speed up processing. This violates the spirit of thoroughness inherent in the exam regulations, potentially leading to inconsistent or superficial assessments and increasing the risk of overlooking significant strengths or weaknesses. Furthermore, prioritizing speed over thoroughness in document verification, such as accepting incomplete academic transcripts without a clear process for follow-up, would be a regulatory failure, as it compromises the integrity of the applicant's academic record as required by the exam guidelines. Professionals tasked with optimizing such processes should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the existing regulations and ethical obligations. They should then identify specific areas for improvement, brainstorm potential solutions, and critically evaluate each solution against the regulatory framework and ethical principles. Pilot testing of proposed changes is crucial to assess their impact on efficiency, accuracy, and fairness before full implementation. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 11. Process analysis reveals that the Akita International University entrance exam admissions team is experiencing delays in processing applications due to the thorough verification of each applicant's academic transcripts and supporting documents. To expedite this, a proposal is made to streamline the verification by relying more heavily on self-reported academic data from the application form, with a less rigorous cross-check against submitted transcripts, especially for applicants who appear to meet initial screening criteria. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles and requirements of the Akita International University entrance exam regulatory framework? Option A. Implement a revised verification protocol that prioritizes cross-referencing self-reported data with submitted transcripts for all applicants, ensuring a robust check against the stated criteria, and only expediting the final review if all data aligns perfectly. Option B. Adopt the proposed streamlined verification method, focusing on self-reported data and a superficial cross-check of transcripts to significantly reduce processing time and clear the backlog of applications. Option C. Develop a tiered verification system where only a small percentage of applications are subjected to full transcript verification, while the majority are processed based on self-reported data and a cursory glance at transcripts. Option D. Request a temporary waiver from the examination board to allow for a less stringent verification process for the current admission cycle, citing the need for efficiency. The correct answer is A. Implement a revised verification protocol that prioritizes cross-referencing self-reported data with submitted transcripts for all applicants, ensuring a robust check against the stated criteria, and only expediting the final review if all data aligns perfectly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the university's admissions process, while aiming for efficiency, must also uphold fairness and transparency, adhering strictly to the Akita International University entrance exam regulations. The pressure to optimize processing times can inadvertently lead to overlooking critical procedural steps or misinterpreting guidelines, potentially impacting the integrity of the admissions outcome and the reputation of the university. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with compliance and fairness. Correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's documentation against the specific criteria outlined in the Akita International University entrance exam regulations, ensuring all required components are present and accurately verified. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established rules, which is paramount in any examination process. The regulatory justification lies in the fundamental principle of equal opportunity and fair assessment, as mandated by the university's own examination framework. Any deviation from these regulations, even for the sake of speed, could be construed as a breach of procedural fairness and could lead to challenges against the admissions decision. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the completeness of the application form, without verifying the authenticity or validity of supporting documents, fails to meet the regulatory requirement for comprehensive assessment. This overlooks the possibility of fraudulent submissions, which the examination regulations implicitly aim to prevent. Another incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about the applicant's qualifications based on incomplete information to expedite processing, directly contravenes the principle of evidence-based decision-making embedded in the examination guidelines. This bypasses the due diligence required by the regulations. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed over accuracy by accepting potentially ambiguous or incomplete evidence without seeking clarification as per established procedures risks compromising the integrity of the admissions process and violates the spirit of the examination regulations, which demand a rigorous and verifiable assessment. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the Akita International University Entrance Exam regulations. This involves identifying the specific requirements for each stage of the admissions process. Next, they should assess the current process against these regulations to identify any potential bottlenecks or areas of noncompliance. When faced with a decision, the framework dictates that the primary consideration must be adherence to the established rules and ethical principles of fairness and accuracy. If a situation arises where efficiency conflicts with compliance, the professional should seek guidance or escalate the issue rather than compromising regulatory standards. The goal is to optimize processes within the strict confines of the regulatory framework, not to circumvent it. Question 12. Upon reviewing the Akita International University Entrance Examination process, a proposal is made to significantly reduce the time allocated for the written comprehension section to expedite the overall examination schedule. This proposal aims to improve process efficiency by allowing more applicants to complete their examinations within a shorter time frame. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of process optimization within the context of a university entrance examination? Option A. Implementing the proposed time reduction for the written comprehension section to achieve faster processing of applicants. Option B. Informing applicants of the reduced time for the written comprehension section only on the day of the examination to maintain an element of surprise. Option C. Automating the scoring of the written comprehension section using a keyword matching algorithm to speed up grading without further review. Option D. Conducting a thorough analysis of the written comprehension section's objectives and the cognitive skills it aims to assess, followed by a pilot test of any proposed time adjustments to ensure fairness and validity of assessment before wider implementation. Correct answer is A. Implementing the proposed time reduction for the written comprehension section to achieve faster processing of applicants. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the applicant is seeking admission to Akita International University, and the university's entrance examination process, as governed by its internal regulations and any applicable Japanese Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology (MEXT) guidelines for university admissions, must be followed meticulously. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the process optimization, while aiming for efficiency, does not inadvertently compromise the fairness, integrity, or accessibility of the examination for all applicants. The university has a responsibility to uphold its admission standards and provide a transparent and equitable process. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the existing examination process to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the development and implementation of changes that are clearly documented, communicated to all stakeholders, including applicants and examiners, and rigorously tested for effectiveness and fairness. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and operational excellence expected of an academic institution. Specifically, it adheres to the implicit regulatory framework of university admissions, which prioritizes fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the evaluation process. Any changes must be evaluated against these core principles, ensuring that efficiency gains do not lead to a reduction in the quality of assessment or create disadvantages for certain applicant groups. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering the impact on the quality of assessment would be professionally unacceptable. For instance, reducing the time allocated for essay-based questions to speed up grading might lead to superficial evaluations and penalize applicants who require more time for thoughtful responses, violating the principle of fair assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to automate parts of the evaluation process without adequate human oversight or validation. This could lead to algorithmic bias or misinterpretation of applicant responses, undermining the credibility of the examination and potentially violating principles of equitable evaluation. Furthermore, implementing changes without proper communication to applicants about the modified process could lead to confusion and distress, failing to uphold the university's duty of care and transparency. Professionals tasked with optimizing such processes should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the existing process and its objectives. This should be followed by a comprehensive impact assessment of any proposed changes, considering not only efficiency, but also fairness, accuracy, and applicant experience. Pilot testing and feedback mechanisms are crucial to validate the effectiveness of the changes before full implementation. Adherence to the university's internal regulations and any relevant national guidelines for academic admissions is paramount throughout this process. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate that an anonymous tip has been received alleging that some of the supporting documents submitted by a highly qualified international applicant for the Akita International University entrance exam may have been falsified. The applicant has otherwise met all stated academic and extracurricular criteria. What is the most appropriate course of action for the Akita International University Admissions Committee? Option A. Immediately reject the applicant's application based on the anonymous tip to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. Option B. Conduct a thorough, objective review of all submitted application materials, including the potentially questionable documents, and seek to verify their authenticity through established university procedures before making a final admission decision. Option C. Contact the applicant directly and confront them with the anonymous allegation before conducting any internal investigation. Option D. Proceed with admitting the applicant as planned, assuming the tip is unsubstantiated, to avoid delaying the admissions timeline. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough, objective review of all submitted application materials, including the potentially questionable documents, and seek to verify their authenticity through established university procedures before making a final admission decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's academic aspirations and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admission processes. The admissions committee must balance the desire to support a promising candidate with the imperative to uphold the university's standards and prevent any perception of impropriety. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision made is both fair to the applicant and consistent with Akita International University's established admission policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's entire application, including the supplementary materials, by the admissions committee. This process should focus on verifying the authenticity of all submitted information and assessing the applicant's overall suitability for the program based on merit and adherence to university regulations. The regulatory framework for university admissions, as outlined by Akita International University's internal guidelines, emphasizes transparency, fairness, and the prevention of academic misconduct. Ethically, the university has a duty to all applicants to maintain a level playing field and to ensure that admissions are based on genuine qualifications and achievements. Therefore, a systematic review that seeks to confirm the integrity of the application, rather than immediately dismissing it or overlooking potential issues, aligns with these principles. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the application based solely on the anonymous tip, without any independent verification. This fails to uphold the principle of due process for the applicant and could lead to the rejection of a qualified candidate based on unsubstantiated allegations. It also neglects the university's responsibility to conduct a fair and thorough assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the admission without any further investigation, despite the red flag raised by the anonymous tip. This would demonstrate a disregard for academic integrity and could potentially admit a student who has engaged in fraudulent practices, thereby undermining the reputation and standards of the university. It also fails to address the potential breach of admission regulations. A third incorrect approach would be to confront the applicant directly with the anonymous tip without first conducting a preliminary, objective investigation. This could prejudice the applicant and create an adversarial situation before all facts are gathered, potentially violating the university's internal procedures for handling such concerns. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured approach. First, acknowledge and document the concern raised. Second, initiate an objective and confidential preliminary investigation to gather factual information and assess the credibility of the allegation. Third, if the preliminary investigation suggests a potential issue, follow the university's established procedures for further inquiry, which may involve requesting clarification or additional documentation from the applicant or convening a formal review panel. Throughout this process, maintaining confidentiality and fairness to the applicant is paramount, while also safeguarding the integrity of the admissions process. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential breach of academic integrity during the Akita International University entrance exam, specifically concerning the alleged use of unauthorized electronic devices by a candidate. According to the Akita International University entrance exam regulations, what is the most appropriate initial course of action for the examination proctor? Option A. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and escort them from the examination hall without further discussion. Option B. Approach the candidate, inform them of the suspicion, and request them to voluntarily surrender any unauthorized electronic devices. Option C. Issue a verbal warning to the candidate about the rules regarding electronic devices and continue the examination. Option D. Discreetly observe the candidate for the remainder of the examination and report the suspicion to the examination board for a post-exam review. The correct answer is A. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination materials and escort them from the examination hall without further discussion. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead some students to seek unfair advantages, necessitating robust assessment procedures and clear ethical guidelines. Akita International University's entrance exam regulations are designed to ensure a fair and equitable evaluation of all candidates, upholding the value of genuine academic achievement. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged misconduct, adhering strictly to the Akita International University entrance exam regulations concerning academic integrity. This approach prioritizes fairness to the accused student by providing an opportunity to respond to the allegations, while also upholding the university's standards by ensuring that any proven violation is addressed appropriately. This aligns with the university's commitment to a transparent and just examination process, as outlined in its academic integrity policies. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the student without a proper investigation. This fails to provide due process and violates the principle of natural justice, which is implicitly expected in university regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegation altogether, which undermines the integrity of the examination process and signals a lack of commitment to academic honesty. Finally, an approach that involves public shaming or premature judgment before a formal finding of guilt would be unethical and could lead to reputational damage for both the student and the university, violating principles of confidentiality and fairness. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process. First, acknowledging the allegation and initiating a preliminary review. Second, gathering all relevant evidence impartially. Third, providing the student with a clear understanding of the allegations and an opportunity to present their case. Fourth, consulting the specific university regulations to determine the appropriate course of action based on the findings. And finally, implementing the decision in a fair, consistent, and documented manner. Question 15. Examination of the data shows an applicant for the Akita International University entrance exam has submitted a standardized test score that appears unusually high compared to their previous academic records from their home country. The applicant also provided a personal essay that is exceptionally well written and articulate, raising questions about potential external assistance. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure adherence to the Akita International University entrance exam's regulatory framework and principles of academic integrity? Option A. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the suspicion of academic dishonesty without further investigation. Option B. Contact the applicant's previous educational institution for informal feedback on their academic capabilities without a formal request or established university protocol. Option C. Request additional verifiable documentation from the applicant to clarify the discrepancy in their academic performance and the origin of their essay, while proceeding with a holistic review based on all submitted materials and university admission criteria. Option D. Accept the applicant's application at face value, assuming the high score and essay reflect genuine merit, and overlook the potential discrepancies. The correct answer is C. Request additional verifiable documentation from the applicant to clarify the discrepancy in their academic performance and the origin of their essay, while proceeding with a holistic review based on all submitted materials and university admission criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The university entrance exam, as governed by Akita International University-specific regulations, requires a rigorous and unbiased evaluation of all applicants. The challenge lies in discerning genuine academic merit from potentially unfair advantages, necessitating a careful and principled approach to data interpretation. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's submitted materials, cross-referencing them with established university admission criteria and any specific guidelines for evaluating international applicants. This approach prioritizes adherence to Akita International University's stated admission policies and ethical standards for fair evaluation. It ensures that decisions are based on verifiable academic performance and potential, as defined by the university, and upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates. The regulatory framework of Akita International University entrance exam mandates a transparent and equitable admissions process, and this approach directly aligns with those requirements by focusing on objective evidence and established criteria. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the applicant based on a single piece of information, without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of legitimate explanations or mitigating circumstances, potentially leading to an unfair rejection and a violation of the university's commitment to a comprehensive evaluation. Another incorrect approach would be to grant preferential treatment or make assumptions about the applicant's capabilities based on their origin or perceived background, rather than on their documented academic achievements and suitability for the program. This violates the principle of meritocracy and equal opportunity, which are fundamental to academic institutions. Furthermore, an approach that involves seeking external, unofficial information or making subjective judgments without a clear basis in the university's admission criteria would also be professionally unsound, as it deviates from established procedures and introduces bias. Professionals in university admission should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. This involves systematically reviewing all submitted documentation, identifying any potential discrepancies or areas requiring clarification, and then seeking to verify information through appropriate channels as outlined by the university. The process should be objective, evidence-based, and focused on assessing the applicant's qualifications against the established standards, ensuring fairness and integrity throughout. Question 16. Assessment of a prospective student's ethical decision-making when presented with an opportunity to use unauthorized pre-written notes during the Akita International University entrance exam, considering the university's strict adherence to its own examination regulations. Option A. The student should refrain from using the pre-written notes and complete the exam solely based on their own knowledge and preparation, as per Akita International University's entrance exam regulations. Option B. The student should discreetly use the pre-written notes to improve their score, believing that the university's primary focus is on admitting capable students, and a slight advantage is justifiable. Option C. The student should attempt to share the pre-written notes with other students to create a collaborative advantage, assuming that collective success is more important than individual adherence to rules. Option D. The student should ignore the pre-written notes but feel pressured to guess answers randomly if unsure, rather than admitting to themselves that they are unprepared, as this might be perceived as a sign of weakness. Correct answer is A. The student should refrain from using the pre-written notes and complete the exam solely based on their own knowledge and preparation, as per Akita International University's entrance exam regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams, especially for a prestigious institution like Akita International University, can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding the principles of fairness and honesty that underpin the examination process. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical implications of the situation and prioritizing adherence to the Akita International University entrance exam regulation. This means understanding that any form of academic dishonesty, including the use of unauthorized aids, is a direct violation of the exam's integrity. The university's regulations, as stipulated for the entrance exam, unequivocally prohibit such actions. Therefore, the student's responsibility is to complete the exam solely based on their own knowledge and preparation, without any external assistance. This upholds the principle of meritocracy and ensures a fair assessment for all candidates. An incorrect approach would be to engage in any form of cheating. This includes attempting to use pre-written notes or any other unauthorized material. Such actions directly contravene the explicit rules of the Akita International University entrance exam, which are designed to ensure a level playing field. The ethical failure lies in the deception involved and the attempt to gain an unfair advantage over other candidates who are adhering to the rules. This undermines the credibility of the examination process and the value of the qualifications awarded by the university. Another incorrect approach would be to seek assistance from another individual during the exam. This also constitutes a violation of the exam's integrity and is explicitly forbidden by the university's regulations. The ethical failure here is similar to using unauthorized materials. It involves dishonesty and an attempt to circumvent the assessment of individual capabilities. A professional decision-making process in such a situation would involve a clear understanding of the examination rules and regulations. Candidates must internalize the importance of academic integrity and the consequences of violating these rules. When faced with the temptation to cheat, the professional decision is to resist it, recognizing that long-term academic and personal success is built on a foundation of honesty and hard work. If a student is struggling, the appropriate course of action is to seek legitimate academic support through university-provided resources or to dedicate more time to personal study, rather than resorting to unethical practices. Question 17. Which approach would be most appropriate for an applicant to Akita International University when crafting their personal statement for admission, aiming to showcase their suitability and understanding of the university's academic environment? Option A. Develop a narrative that reflects on personal experiences and insights, demonstrating how these have shaped the applicant's academic interests and aspirations, and explicitly linking these reflections to the unique academic opportunities and research areas offered at Akita International University. Option B. Compile a list of academic awards and high grades from previous institutions, presenting them as evidence of academic prowess without further elaboration on the applicant's learning process or future academic goals. Option C. Focus on presenting a comprehensive overview of the applicant's extracurricular achievements and leadership roles, highlighting transferable skills without explicitly connecting them to Akita International University's specific programs or values. Option D. Thoroughly research and integrate direct quotes from prominent academics in the field relevant to the applicant's intended major, ensuring these quotes are seamlessly woven into the narrative to support their arguments. The correct answer is D. Thoroughly research and integrate direct quotes from prominent academics in the field relevant to the applicant's intended major, ensuring these quotes are seamlessly woven into the narrative to support their arguments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an Akita International University applicant due to the need to balance academic integrity with the university's specific admission guidelines. The applicant must demonstrate genuine understanding and original thought, not merely the ability to reproduce information. The challenge lies in presenting a unique perspective that aligns with the university's values and academic standards without infringing upon academic honesty principles. The correct approach involves synthesizing personal insights and experiences with the university's stated mission and academic focus, demonstrating a thoughtful and original connection. This aligns with the Akita International University's likely emphasis on critical thinking and individual contribution, as is standard for reputable academic institutions. The university seeks to admit students who can engage with their curriculum meaningfully and contribute to the academic community, not simply those who can present well-researched but unoriginal content. An incorrect approach would be to directly quote extensively from academic sources without proper attribution, as this constitutes plagiarism and violates academic integrity principles fundamental to any university, including Akita International University. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on generic achievements without tailoring them to the specific values and academic programs of Akita International University, thus failing to demonstrate genuine interest or suitability. Finally, an approach that relies on unsubstantiated claims or exaggerations, even if not directly plagiarized, undermines credibility and demonstrates a lack of the honesty and integrity expected of university applicants. Professionals in admissions and academic advising would assess applicants based on their ability to articulate their motivations and qualifications in a manner that reflects genuine understanding, originality, and adherence to ethical standards. The decision-making process involves evaluating the applicant's capacity for independent thought, their alignment with the institution's ethos, and their commitment to academic honesty. Question 18. Implementation of a new holistic review process for international applicants to Akita International University has been initiated. The admissions committee is reviewing the application of a highly promising candidate from a region with limited access to standardized testing resources. While the candidate's academic transcripts and personal essays are exceptional, their submitted English proficiency scores are slightly below the stated minimum threshold due to the aforementioned resource limitations. The committee is aware that this candidate's potential contributions to the university's diversity initiatives are significant. Which of the following approaches best reflects the ethical and regulatory framework for university admissions at Akita International University? Option A. Recommend a conditional offer of admission, requiring the candidate to complete an intensive English language program before commencing their degree studies, with clear communication of this requirement. Option B. Admit the candidate without any further English language assessment, trusting their exceptional essays and transcripts as sufficient indicators of their language ability. Option C. Waive the English proficiency requirement for this candidate due to their exceptional overall profile and potential contributions to diversity, while documenting the rationale for the waiver. Option D. Reject the candidate outright due to their failure to meet the minimum English proficiency score, as per the established guidelines. The correct answer is C. Waive the English proficiency requirement for this candidate due to their exceptional overall profile and potential contributions to diversity, while documenting the rationale for the waiver. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes for the university. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of fair and objective evaluation against potential institutional pressures or biases. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the university's reputation for academic rigor is maintained. The correct approach involves a thorough and unbiased review of all application materials, adhering strictly to the established admission criteria and the Akita International University's stated policies. This approach upholds academic integrity by ensuring that all candidates are assessed on their merits and qualifications, without undue influence from external factors or personal biases. It aligns with ethical principles of fairness and transparency in the admissions process, which are implicitly expected of any reputable academic institution. An incorrect approach that prioritizes a candidate based on perceived institutional benefit, such as potential future alumni donations or athletic prowess, without a comprehensive evaluation of academic suitability, represents a significant ethical failure. This undermines the principle of meritocracy and can lead to the admission of underqualified students, potentially lowering academic standards and damaging the university's reputation. It also violates the implicit trust placed in the admissions committee to act impartially. Another incorrect approach, which involves overlooking minor discrepancies in an application to expedite the process or accommodate a favored candidate, also constitutes an ethical lapse. While efficiency is desirable, compromising the integrity of the review process, even for seemingly minor issues, sets a dangerous precedent and can lead to unfairness. It suggests a lack of diligence and a disregard for the established procedures designed to ensure a fair evaluation for all applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to the university's stated mission and values, particularly those related to academic excellence and fairness. Admissions committee members should be trained to recognize and mitigate personal biases and to adhere strictly to established evaluation rubrics. When faced with conflicting pressures or ambiguous situations, seeking guidance from senior committee members or university policy documents is crucial. The ultimate goal is to make decisions that are defensible, transparent, and uphold the highest standards of academic integrity. Question 19. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential applicant to Akita International University has disclosed significant extenuating circumstances that impacted their academic performance during their final year of secondary education. The applicant has otherwise met the minimum academic entry requirements for their chosen program. The admissions committee is deliberating on how to proceed with evaluating this application. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of fair and responsible university admissions? Option A. Offer conditional admission based solely on the extenuating circumstances, without a thorough assessment of the applicant's academic preparedness for the program. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic record and personal statement, giving due consideration to the disclosed extenuating circumstances and assessing their potential for academic success at Akita International University. Option C. Automatically reject the application due to the lower academic performance in the final year of secondary education, as this is a primary indicator of future academic capability. Option D. Seek informal opinions from current faculty members outside the admissions committee regarding the applicant's potential, without a formal review process. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the applicant's entire academic record and personal statement, giving due consideration to the disclosed extenuating circumstances and assessing their potential for academic success at Akita International University. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's academic aspirations and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admissions. The admissions committee must balance the desire to provide opportunities with the need to uphold the standards and reputation of Akita International University. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision is both fair to the applicant and consistent with the university's policies and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the applicant's entire profile, considering all available information, including the disclosed extenuating circumstances, and assessing their potential to succeed academically at Akita International University. This approach aligns with the university's commitment to a holistic admissions process, which aims to identify candidates who not only meet academic benchmarks, but also demonstrate resilience, character, and potential. It respects the principle of fairness by giving due consideration to the applicant's situation without compromising the integrity of the admissions standards. The university's internal guidelines, which likely emphasize fair evaluation and consideration of mitigating factors, would support this comprehensive review. An incorrect approach would be to automatically reject the applicant based solely on the initial academic performance, without investigating the disclosed extenuating circumstances. This fails to acknowledge the university's potential obligation to consider mitigating factors and could lead to an unfair outcome, potentially overlooking a candidate with significant potential who faced genuine challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to grant admission solely based on the extenuating circumstances without a proper assessment of the applicant's academic preparedness. This undermines the university's academic standards and could lead to the admission of a student who is unlikely to succeed, ultimately harming both the student and the institution. Finally, an approach that involves seeking external opinions or advice from individuals not authorized by the university's admissions policy would violate confidentiality and procedural fairness, introducing bias and potentially compromising the integrity of the admissions process. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established university policies and ethical principles. This involves gathering all relevant information, conducting a fair and objective evaluation, considering any disclosed mitigating circumstances in accordance with policy, and making a decision that upholds academic standards while also promoting fairness and equity. Transparency in the process and adherence to confidentiality are paramount. Question 20. During the evaluation of an applicant's submission for the Akita International University entrance exam, it was noted that the applicant accessed several external websites for definitions of complex terms and to review general concepts related to the essay topics shortly before submitting their work. The applicant claims this was for clarification and not to copy answers. Option A. The applicant's actions are permissible as they sought clarification of general concepts and did not directly copy answers, demonstrating a proactive approach to understanding the material. Option B. The applicant's actions are a violation of academic integrity, as the examination regulations prohibit any external consultation during the assessment period, regardless of the intent or nature of the consultation. Option C. The applicant's actions are acceptable as long as the information accessed was publicly available and did not constitute plagiarism of specific phrases or sentences. Option D. The applicant's actions are permissible because the university's regulations do not explicitly mention the prohibition of accessing online dictionaries or general knowledge websites for clarification. The correct answer is A. The applicant's actions are permissible as they sought clarification of general concepts and did not directly copy answers, demonstrating a proactive approach to understanding the material. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective Akita International University students by testing their understanding of academic integrity and the university's specific entrance examination regulations. The core difficulty lies in discerning between acceptable forms of external assistance and outright academic misconduct, particularly when information is readily available online. Students must navigate the ethical boundaries set by the university to ensure their application is evaluated fairly and legitimately. The correct approach involves independently completing the entrance examination tasks without any unauthorized external support. This aligns with Akita International University's commitment to assessing each candidate's genuine abilities and knowledge. Relying on external help, even if seemingly minor, violates the principle of individual merit and the explicit rules of the examination, which are designed to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to consult online forums or ask friends for direct answers to specific questions during the examination. This constitutes academic dishonesty, as it bypasses the intended assessment of the applicant's own understanding and problem-solving skills. Such actions undermine the integrity of the examination process and demonstrate a lack of ethical judgment, which are critical qualities sought by the university. Another incorrect approach would be to use pre-written answers or materials not permitted by the examination guidelines. This is a clear violation of academic integrity rules and would likely lead to disqualification. Professionals facing similar situations should first identify the specific rules and ethical guidelines governing the task or assessment. They should then consider the intent behind these rules in this case, to ensure fair and accurate evaluation of individual capabilities. If there is any doubt about the permissibility of an action, the safest and most ethical course is to refrain from it or seek clarification from the relevant authority, in this case, the university admissions office, before proceeding.